Hello guys, Torte de Lini here. 7.37c is out just a couple weeks before the International 2024. Feel this patch was pretty much due and is double-edged in that regard. It's shaking up the meta in a way that's trying to shut down some ultra strong but dull carries like Windranger and Lina. I think you guys have played these heroes and are pretty much tired of seeing them. But I also think it's trying to kill this this aura death ball meta that we've been seeing a lot with like heroes just stacking up auras. Guarding Greaves, Pipe, even, Crimson Guard has been nerfed, but I don't know if we'll see it picked up as much. And it's really been stifling both supports and offlane diversity. I even saw a hero like Jakiro pick up Guarding Greaves at this point. It's a little absurd. So let's talk about the top 10 or even 11 changes of this patch. So first item, kind of a no-brainer, Gleipnir, probably the biggest nerf in the entire patch. I won't really see how much this change ripples into the affected pause 1 heroes, but we know for sure that it definitely hurts range carries. Heroes like Lina and Windranger are probably the most popular ones that rely on the damage and extra health. That was half the value for Gleipnir. That kind of relieved them of some concerns on survivability when they rushed this item. Weaver is another example of a hero that was getting a lot of survivability and catch when the hero really should be much easier to kill if you rush to this item. So really, honestly, 50 health, probably nobody's really crying about it, but I do think it has a significant cumulative effect along with the other changes for heroes that buy this item but also nerfed this patch. Y'all, Ringmaster, new hero, but also now a nerfed hero. Ringmaster being nerfed is also a no-brainer if you play against him. One of the best pause 4 heroes to play this patch. The bonus strength from Strongman Tonic was a bit too good, honestly, in the mid game, where it gave certain strength heroes too much damage and survivability. 1.5 to 1 has a cumulative effect again more later on than early on. It's an item that just scales pretty well, honestly, and I was pretty skeptical about souvenir items before, but seeing how Strongman Tonic kind of affects heroes both in survivability but also in damage if their strength or even universal attribute, it just felt a little too good. It lasts a pretty decent time too. The Wheel of Wonder changes are also a no-brainer as well. They're big nerfs if you haven't really understood why the automatic explosion timer decrease from 8 to 6 is important. But ultimately, how you should be reading it is that the timer duration decreasing means less taunt duration, and the automatic explosion timer going from 8 to 6 seconds is a bit less absurd if you're caught in it. 8 seconds and it slows you, I think, 50% plus does damage. For 8 seconds is, I think, the longest of effects that I can think of off the top of my head. That's also slow, so pretty huge. 6 seconds is a pretty big decrease, so I'm hoping that's gonna be enough to nerf this hero. So now for the obvious changes here. You can't see it with my head, but Pipe of Insight's barrier has also been nerfed. Basically, it's just to summarize, it's just a big aura nerf for everybody involved. Probably one of the more global changes of this patch. The reduction in value of heals and barriers for Pipe and Guardian Greaves diminishes the value of so many heroes. I think it kind of created like a black hole of what you had to do as an offlane hero, and even as a pause 4, pause 5 hero. Even heroes, like I said, like Jakiro was buying Guardian Greaves at this point, and obviously heroes like Unlord and Darkseer were just stacking up auras. Honestly, the nerf was pretty long overdue. We might even see some heroes that were relying on them, like Leshrac, for example, see a hit in terms of the pick rate, just because there's so much less protection, and more importantly, there's just so much less preservation in the lineup for when you start pushing and start really deathballing down the lanes. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see more diversity in off lanes. If we start seeing some more aggressive off lane picks like not Timber, excuse me. Even Timber was rushing Pipe of Insight. I forgot that he was going like Kaya, Pipe of Insight. It was just kind of dull, honestly. But we start seeing heroes like Axe get picked up and then get completely smashed in by Lina. So I'm hoping this gives off lane and even pause 4 heroes a bit more breathing room to grow. Okay, Lina change. Maybe you guys don't feel this is enough of a change. I am hopeful. I know they don't want to kill this Lina pause 1 carry, but they definitely have made it so it's less of an auto win in the early game. The combustion change is not clear for anybody who hasn't played enough Lina, but basically the bottom line is that it's significant in the early game, early to mid game value of combustion. it's now a bit more feasible, or rather less feasible to achieve, but more feasible to overcome. For example, max level of Dragon Slave would definitely not deal twice the combustion like it would before. So wiping creep camps and auto attacking is not as straightforward, or rather is not as pervasive, doing double the combustion value that it did before. Similarly, having an early point of LSA now doesn't stun as long. 1.3 to 1 seems like it's nothing, but you have to remember Lina at max Fiery Soul attacked at a 0.3, I think, attack speed, if I remember, with maybe a few items. So yeah, that change is also pretty significant early on. I mean, if you were an offlaner and you got hit by one LSA with 7 stacks of Fiery Soul, even at the lower levels where it isn't, 0.3 attack, it was pretty brutal. You were pretty much knocked out for at least a good 4 or 5 minutes. And playing against Lina, those 2, 3, 4 minutes was just devastating. You were pretty much done. So Lina being able to just squat in the lane for 10 minutes straight and then go into the jungle with pretty much infinite mana thanks to arcane boots, and then doing combustion damage to stack jungle camps, it just accelerated her at a speed that was just unbecoming. It was like a 10-11 minute Gleipnir. So 10-11 minute Gleipnir plus 25 extra damage you got at level 10, and then all that combustion damage was just brutal. There's just nothing you could do against this hero early to mid game. Now she's still very strong late game, but now her early to mid game doesn't mean she comes to the late game that quickly. Right, the Harpy change. Confused, right? I mean, why was this nerfed? I mean, basically what's happening is that the Harpy and the Enchantress nerf are one of the same, basically. Heroes like Harpy, like Chen, like Doom, when they saw this hero, when they saw this creep at level 1 or 2, it was, I wouldn't say it's an auto win, but it was a win for a lot of high level players that were really taking advantage of the chain lightning damage from the Harpy. It was just absolutely insane. Pretty much you bullied the lane too often, or you pretty much guaranteed the damage output. Same with Doom and Arcane Boots, where it was just too valuable for such a low mana cost. It was something like 3 casts at 50, so now it's a bit more expensive. And I think for Chen, he pretty much grabbed the Harpy and threw it in the mid lane, and it was just like the mid lane was just overjoyed to have his lane pretty much determined. Alrighty, more Ember nerfs. Yeah, I mean, they just want to kill this hero at this point, and I would understand why, because he's still absolutely insane. Yes, his win rate wasn't as great. I think last patch, I think it was like 51%, 52%, so within the realm of feasibility, of acceptability. The early game, again, it's just they're trying to really make Ember Spirit's early game less of a success in anyone's hands, I guess is the way I would try and describe it. They try and keep his early game intact pretty much since it's been nerfed last patch, and is essentially trying to make him less forgiving late game. Basically, if you don't remember in 7.37b, they basically rescaled the Slate of Fist to have a longer cooldown, and then they nerfed his level 10 talents. And then if you remember before that, in 7.37, they made Searing Chains more expensive early game as well. So they're really trying to round out Ember Spirit to be more mana intensive and do less output with initial points of Flame Guard. Now that it's been split into an innate ability, and that scales with Fire Remnant, so it comes up much better later in the game when you actually put points into it, which you don't until 15, 16, or 16, somewhere around there. You definitely don't get it after the initial point at 6. So I think Ember Spirit, he's getting there. I think he's definitely weak. The Gleipnir change has definitely affected him as well. He can still do everything that he would want to do, right? His Searing Chains did get nerfed previous patch, but it's still grabbing people for a significantly long period. You can still chain it, chain root with Gleipnir. It's just you don't have as much survivability. You're not dealing as much damage from the chain effect, and more importantly, your early game is a little more costly as you max it out, which you usually do first anyway. So yeah, Omniknight, he had a moment in the sun for about a day, and then he's been nerfed. Pretty much had all his early to mid game values decreased. When we look at it from afar, Hammer of Purity does less damage early on, significantly. Repel also lasting only 5 seconds right from its first point, and now you need the talent to get back to your original point of 6. Kind of sucks. He was great early game, and he's still great mid to late game, but he was also building Guardian Greaves, so we'll see if he goes back to like an Agent Lens or something that is more revolving around a single heal rather than a global heal. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're nerfing the hero too much, or if he's still gonna be fine. He's still got a lot going for him. All his abilities are still fantastic. I mean, his shard is obviously not as strong as it was before, and then Holy Lock has also been nerfed, so we'll see. Speaking of heals, let's talk about Tinker. Yeah, Tinker. I don't know. These changes are fine, honestly, but I don't think they're enough. I mean, couple this with, I think Holy Locket has also been nerfed. If we Control F that, yeah, Holy Locket heal amplification has also been nerfed from 30% to 25%. It has, again, this is again cumulative effects, right? They even nerfed the base mana regen for Tinker, but if you're Tinker, you're pretty much buying a null, maybe even 2 null talismans for the Eureka cooldown effect, and then here you have a little bit less mana, so you can as comfortably throw out the lasers and the defense matrix early in the lane. Yeah, I don't know. Guardian Greaves also nerfed. You basically have someone who's still, I mean, you're basically still healing for, a ton of health. And what's basically happening is that instead of needing to send out, 3 healing margin of machines, you send out 4 or something. I don't know. I think over time, these accumulative changes are meant to make Tinker a bit more grounded to the rest of Dota, but I think he's just a very convenient hero from the range in which he casts his abilities to the AoE and effect it provides in terms of healings, even if it isn't as much healing as it was before. And I'm not even talking about the changes that they actually did to him, right? Defense matrix from 40% to 30%. Cast range decreased from 700, 750, 850 max to now 700. Again, it makes defense matrix probably the most riskiest or the most risky ability for Tinker right now, I think. Is it enough? Maybe you just grab his talent to fix that nerf, and maybe that was kind of the point they're trying to do for him. Yeah, defense matrix barrier at 15, and then 10% defense matrix status resistance at 20. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Definitely, I think they definitely have to do more. So I know I'm looking at Riki, and I know I wrote about Riki, but the reality is that it's not really about Riki. It's about all the agi cores that they've been buffing up. Heroes like Anti-Mage, who's got some buffs that we don't really care about, but the blink cooldown's pretty sweet early on. Drow Ranger, also been buffed. Now the bonus proc damage increased from 40, 60, 80 to now 50, 70, 90. Just been rescaled since the facet change from marking the ship. Drow Ranger's been kind of in the toilet. I also really like the Phantomizer change. Just doesn't do enough damage throughout all periods of the game. And with the popularity of Maelstrom and Gleipnir, he kind of just fell to the side, to the wayside, especially with his new innate ability. People are just not a huge fan of him. And then lastly, Riki, they made his agi damage agi damage from backstab multiplier a little bit stronger earlier on, which is pretty important if you're playing with the XP facet, where every kill you get a bit more XP. So Riki starts to snowball. Now it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say convenient, more guaranteed to deal the damage to finish off opponents within the diffusal blade timing. But overall, the grand scheme of how you're supposed to see these changes for a lot of these agi heroes, that essentially a lot of popular Pause 1 heroes were heroes that kind of came online earlier, with stronger power spike timings than these agi heroes who needed a bit more cooking time to get their core items and reaching late game. However, that meant they'd run into these kind of impenetrable tanky team fight balls, death balls that we talked about, that couldn't really be penetrated, especially with the armor that you would get from Guardian Greaves and everything else, even if you build, let's say, Crimson Guard as well. So basically down the road, we're hoping to see some good early mid game agi core heroes come back into the meta, into the fold, rather than what we've been seeing lately, which has been like the Linas, the Svens, the Ursas. I think Ursa's agi though, so I know Luna kind of made a showing for like a brief second. Hopefully that comes back too, but time will tell. But yeah, overall, some agi heroes are now looking a little bit better than before, and hopefully they get some time. They get some picks at the international. So Zeus is probably the last hero to talk about. Maybe I'm biased because I really like Zeus, but basically for Zeus, the changes are trying to make him more viable, especially with the nerf to Pipe of Insight, which is probably the most important part. pretty much scared off this hero entirely. Ember Spirit as well. It just made this hero never be picked whatsoever. Essentially, I'm not quite sure if he's going to still be around, if he's going to be really picked at all. I think if Lina is still good, especially with that level 15 talent, I'm not sure we'll see Zeus whatsoever. The level 15 talent for Lina, if you don't remember, gives her magic resist based on the number of fiery soul stacks. It pretty much made her the equivalent of like Anti-Mage. I think she got like 60% max fiery soul stacks in terms of magic resistance. So yeah, I don't know. For Zeus, it's tough. I mean, he doesn't have the lane dominance compared to other heroes. He does farm okay. Heavily reliant on his mana, though they did make it a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see. I think Leshrac is still a pretty good bid, as far as I understand. And it means that Zeus doesn't really have much playtime. So let's see about it. So let's conclude. Overall, some strong cumulative changes to a lot of popular builds and heroes. Honestly, not sure it's enough, but I also think by nerfing too much, what ends up happening is you end up seeing some super strong heroes come back into the mix that were suppressed. Maybe like a Life Stealer would be probably my first thought. Let's see what happens, honestly, at the Road to International, and I hope to see some more diverse picks. Maybe they'll do a nerf between the Road to International and the International, though time will tell.